episode 5 of the Baseline to Baseline podcast. I'm your host, Alister Albert, and we're going to be talking about the current NBA playoffs. There's just so much happening in the last couple of days and weeks. With the conference finals going on right now, we have, of course, the Los Angeles Lakers battling the Denver Nuggets and the Boston Celtics going against the Miami Heat. And it's been, action-packed since these conference finals have started. Of course, today being Saturday the 19th of September, the first match in the Western Conference Finals playing last night, Friday the 18th, and 2 matches gone so far in the Eastern Conference Finals between the Boston Celtics and Miami Heat, and all the matches so far have been really riveting and really interesting, and it's going to be really interesting to see who progresses to the next round, the NBA Finals, and become the bubble champ, the NBA champions for the year 2020. So of course, the Western Conference Finals will just start right there because I think we got an outcome that not many people expected. I think a lot of people were thinking that the Los Angeles Clippers would advance and face the Los Angeles Lakers, and it be an all LA conference finals between the two best teams, the 1 and 2 seed in the West. But that was not meant to be, and once again we were robbed of a conference finals or a finals that many people were expecting and really looking forward to at the start of the season. So, similar to 2009 where Kobe and LeBron had to face up in the NBA Finals, we ended up getting Kobe and Dwight Howard and the Orlando Magic, Hedo Turkoglu and Jameer Nelson and those guys. And also, we wanted to see LBJ, LeBron James, going against Kawhi Leonard this year, but it just wasn't meant to be. So but so far, the Denver Nuggets, who have advanced to these Western Conference Finals, have been nothing short of box office. They've come back from 2 series against the Utah Jazz and the Clippers, being down 3-1 in both of those and advancing, forcing game 7s and advancing. So, the Nuggets are no slouch, and you really need to take them seriously, Los Angeles and LeBron. Even if you beat them really handily last night, these guys could come back. Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray are not to be played with. So, like I said last night, game 1 of the Western Conference Finals happening, and Lakers, like we said, they handed them a really, hard defeat. And one of the things that I kind of said going into these conference finals was, how much more does Denver have left? They've fought a really good fight in these playoffs, like I said a while ago, coming back from two times being down 3-1 and advancing, but that has to take its toll physically, and you just have to wonder how much more they have left, and can they actually get past a really big Lakers squad, who are sort of built to beat a team like Denver. When you look at the rosters, you have on the Lakers team, you have loads of guys with like almost 7 feet wingspans who could cause a lot of disruption in the zone and on the perimeter, deflecting shots, deflecting passes, and getting out there. And in game 1 we saw exactly that. Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray both scoring 21 points, which good enough output, but not what you expect from them when you go against the Los Angeles Lakers. And they had trouble. They couldn't get into the zone, attack the rim as much as they would like to. Dwight Howard was a man possessed. He played really good, finishing alley-oop plays, deflecting basketballs, and the defense on the Lakers side just showed what they can do when everyone is totally engaged, and they literally stifled Jokic. And it's one of the things that I think before the conference finals had started, I'd kind of predicted, and I said, well, once the Lakers bigs, who are very mobile, they're not lumbering bigs, Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee and Anthony Davis, and if you want to count LeBron James as a big, these guys are very mobile, so they can get out to the 3-point line if they need to, and bother 3-point shots, mid-range shots, and coming at the rim, you got to be really brave or have some excellent footwork like Nikola Jokic does have, and and post up and make those baskets under the rim. But it's a really difficult proposition for these guys to hold off the Los Angeles Lakers in these series, and seeing them go in 7 games, I'm not sure about that. I'm kind of looking at what the predictions can be right now, and I think the Lakers can take the series in 5 games if they actually really put their foot down. But realistically, I think it will take 6 games. The Denver Nuggets they've just shown they could come back, and they're talented, and they could just go on a hot streak. And when Michael Porter Jr. goes off, and Jeremy Grant starts to play heavy defense and cuts to the basket, and all these other role players around Jamal Murray, Gary Harris, and Nikola Jokic, once these guys start clicking, they're really, really hard to stop. So I could see them winning at least 2 games. If they push it to a game 7, I would not be surprised as well. But I think realistically, the Lakers could take them down in 6. Just judging by last night as well, it looks like that might be the outcome. Let's see what happens. They've proven it before, but the Lakers, I think, in my prediction, will probably move on to the finals, probably in 6 games. What I want to do here a little bit is look at the Los Angeles Clippers and what happened with them in the last round, the conference semifinals, where they wet the bed. They had a really difficult time against the Denver Nuggets in the last 3 games, being up 3-1 in those finals, and to lose at that time. And once again, the Clipper curse has come true. They haven't been able to progress to the Western Conference Finals, losing again in very disappointing fashion, and that takes you all the way back. In recent history, we had guys like Chris Paul and Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan, there with Doc Rivers, fighting to get those chances to move on to the finals and the Western Conference Finals, and take the franchise to a place that it had never been before. But always there's either injury or just choking, and something happens where they don't progress, and it once again happened. You have the 2 superstars in that team, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, not playing up to the standard that you expected, and robbing the NBA world of the NBA of the conference finals that I think we all been seeking and waiting for, between LeBron James and Kawhi Leonard, and an all LA Western Conference Finals. So I guess we'll have to wait till 2021 to see that happen. But it was really disappointing. But Doc Rivers right now, I think, is clearly on the hot seat. It is now, I think I saw somewhere on Twitter that it's now his 3rd time being a coach, being up 3-1 and still losing that series, and most of them I think happening with the Clippers. So it just shows that basketball is a very bottom line sport. And if Steve Ballmer was to be really, harsh about it and just look at bottom lines, he hasn't done what he's supposed to do, as a championship coach, coming from the Boston Celtics, and what they expected him to come with, that stability and that ability to just get guys, to where they need to be and take them to the promised land. He hasn't been able to deliver that to the Clippers as yet. So does Doc Rivers stay till next year? Steve Ballmer has said that he will want Doc Rivers to return. So, and I think that's the right thing. I think he should get one more chance and one more crack at it. But I wouldn't be surprised that if the Clippers even start off really slow, that Steve Ballmer will have any patience and will probably just yank Doc Rivers out of there, because he has to prove, he has to show that he could take a team, a championship caliber team, to the championships, and he hasn't been able to do that. So the Clippers, it's really disappointing what they did this postseason. But I guess we all have to wait till 2021. LeBron James is getting older, and will he even make the finals next year? We're not sure. So the chances to get that dream final, are now limiting. So we just have to hope this happens. So the legacies of Doc Rivers and Kawhi Leonard are really in the balance. Kawhi Leonard was supposed to be the guy who came to the Clippers and make things all right after winning in Toronto last year, not needing very much, chemistry, to take the Toronto Raptors to the next phase of their development as a franchise. And Everyone was hoping that he would be able to do that for the Clippers, and his status as possibly the best player in the world, you can't even bring that up right now, because he's shown that in the highest stakes game, game 7, to move on to the Western Conference Finals as the main man, not with Tim Duncan, not with Pascal Siakam, who is not even really a superstar at that point, but as the main guy, the guy brought in to take the team to the promised land. He came up really, really short. And like Stephen A. Smith and everyone has says, he did a crazy choke job, not being able to, to lead his team as the number one guy, as a superstar, to the next level. So Kawhi Leonard, I think a lot of us look at the way he plays and you see so many similarities between him and Michael Jordan. And, he was proving it right almost every time, where not just stylistically he looked like MJ, but, in the clutch he delivered each and every time, defensively, offensively, and, it just hasn't worked. It just hasn't worked. So, just as we saw with the series with Dallas, where he, didn't take the challenge and guard Luka Doncic, where Doncic had that crazy 3-pointer to win the game. Once again, Kawhi Leonard has dropped the ball on defense and offense, and not taking the team through. So it's really disappointing for Kawhi, because I really do like him as a player. And, the comparisons, I think, when you talk about someone who is the closest thing we've seen to Michael Jordan, maybe after Kobe Bryant, he was that. And, that was not Michael Jordan, like what happened with that series. So it's going to be very difficult to see what happens with the Clippers next year. But everyone there is on the hot seat. So let's see what happens. So that's it from my discussions about the Western Conference Finals. On the East, we're looking at the Boston Celtics and Miami Heat, and they've been playing, some sort of ball that, it's hashtag bubble ball. Bubble ball is alive and well. It's at its greatest. The Boston Celtics have had two leads on 2 occasions in these 2 games, and the Miami Heat have just come back and stolen their hearts and shown them, you guys have the young, youthful talent. We too have young, youthful talent, but veterans and coaching that could take us past anything that you do. And, we heard after the game that, the guys in the Celtics locker room, Marcus Smart specifically going after his teammates, and I think it was Jaylen Brown, where, they had some arguments and some flare-ups, and media people heard their arguing going on, and it's really disappointing to see that they could possibly be imploding right before our very eyes and not kind of fulfilling the promise that they expect to show and advance to the finals. But anyway, it's still really early. They're just down 2-0 to the Miami Heat, but that's a difficult team to try to come back again. So we'll see what happens with the Celtics. But Coach Brad Stevens, he's been in the NBA now for what, four years, I think it is, and he's no longer an NCAA coach. He's been in the big leagues for a little while, and he has had a few moments where his coaching hasn't stepped up to the level that it needs to. So we hope and we look to see if he can make the adjustments, to Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler, and putting the defenses in place to stop these guys, but also offensively putting the guys in place to score. And we have Gordon Hayward, who's coming off some injury, and whether or not he will be back in the starting lineup, we shall see. And that could totally disrupt this team, and what caused quite a lot of problems last season, where Gordon Hayward came back from injury and went straight back into the starting lineup, and some guys had some serious problems with that. So whether or not he brings Gordon Hayward off the bench or starts him, however the rotations are going to change with Gordon Hayward coming back, he's needed. He will be needed. He's like 16, 17 points a game, and some very useful stats. But how he disrupts the rotation will be very interesting to watch. So it will be a really good series going forward. I think Game 3 tonight. So we'll see what's in store with this series, and if the Miami Heat could take a commanding 3-0 lead, or Boston kind of bring back some respectability to this series and come back up to a 2-1 series. So we'll see what happens there. And, we're talking about the East, and we know that, one of the teams we were expecting to see all the way through were the Milwaukee Bucks. Milwaukee, of course, being put out in the conference semifinals by the Miami Heat, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and his team going out in 5 games, and it was really disappointing. He got injured in game 4, not being able to close out the series and help his team. And there's been lots of rumors swirling as to whether or not he will continue with this team, because it's just been another disappointment after last season and not getting to the finals. And he's now been crowned the 2-time NBA MVP, most valuable player of the regular season. So he's shown his dominance in the regular season, but when it comes time to the playoffs, something's just not happened. And he's had recently, I think reports have shown all across the place that he's had a discussion with ownership, and there was like a 3-hour meeting to discuss the direction of the Milwaukee Bucks moving forward. He of course could opt out of his current contract and become a free agent possibly. And there have been rumors about going to Miami and the Golden State Warriors. There have been a lot of discussions about that. I don't see Giannis doing a Kevin Durant and jump into the team that beat him. I don't think that's him. So I hope that's not him. But it's his choice. Guys have the ability to move around and join the teams that they want to. But I hope for his sake, he saw what's happened with Kevin Durant and how that's just totally thrown his personality out of whack and what people think about him. So I think Giannis, if he really wants to be one of the greats, which he's said countless of times he wants to be, stay in Milwaukee, build something there, get guys to come in, and try to build from there. And talking about trying to bring guys in, one of the names that have been floated around as a potential addition to the Milwaukee Bucks to help bring that team to the next level, and especially in the absence of them losing Michael Brogdon to the Indiana Pacers last offseason, was Chris Paul. Chris Paul recently, I saw his name come up as something where the Milwaukee Bucks were immediately interested in possibly discussing him as an addition to the Milwaukee Bucks. And I think he is probably one of the best people or best options that Milwaukee could get. He had only 1 contract year with the Oklahoma City Thunder, and if they were to want to let him go, Milwaukee would be probably one of the best options for him, as a title contender and a team that's just missing a steady veteran presence at the point guard position. Eric Bledsoe has shown he is not that. He's a really good rotation player who should be coming off the bench. He shouldn't be leading a championship level team as the starting point guard. He just hasn't cut it. He hasn't been really good. And I think someone like Chris Paul would probably be really, really good for that team. But I think there's also a report that came up straight after saying that there are fit issues, and Chris Paul will not be looked at seriously by the Milwaukee Bucks because of fit issues. And I'm trying to figure out what are the fit issues. They need a point guard. George Hill is the backup. Eric Bledsoe could be traded away. Chris Paul is probably one of the best options, but they say fit issues, and I think that's probably a smokescreen. I think Chris Paul probably is being considered heavily by Milwaukee, but we just have to wait and see. The off season is around the corner. It's going to be a very strange off season because the off season now is going to start in December, when we're normally looking forward to Christmas games. But the Milwaukee Bucks will not be the same again, with Giannis probably leaving, or signing up to the Supermax extension for another 5 years, and laying his roots deeper into Milwaukee, taking that team a little further. So we'll see what happens there, and but it's going to be really interesting, what happens and transpires over the next couple of weeks and months. And also we have the Raptors, of course, going out, the reigning champions, who are no longer the reigning champions because they've been put out. They had a really excellent run at the playoffs this year, forcing a Game 7 against the Boston Celtics. They really acquitted themselves really well, but you could see they just missed the presence of a guy like Kawhi Leonard. But you wonder now, with what happened with Kawhi in that last series, would he actually take them forward in a game 7 against the Celtics? But I think he would. He was the difference as to why they won the championship. But maybe if they had him this year and if he didn't leave, probably we're talking about the Miami Heat and the Raptors right now. So it's unfortunate, for the Raptors, but they could be hang their heads really high because they did really well this season, and Masai Ujiri needs a lot of credit for what has happened and the turnaround of this franchise. And of course, we've seen Nick Nurse get a contract extension, going to be the coach of the Raptors for the long term, which was obviously the right move. He was named coach of the year, and he's just been outstanding from last year to now, so he deserves it. But we're looking at Masai Ujiri and trying to figure out what's going on with him, because apparently he hasn't signed an extension yet, and the New York Knicks are sniffing around that property of the Toronto Raptors, trying to see maybe if they could poach him away to join Leon Rose and the World Wide West and James Dolan to try to turn around and revamp the Knicks, who also have interest in Chris Paul, unsurprisingly. So there's a lot going on in the East, and we could just look forward to the off season after the champion is crowned this year and see what happens, because the NBA landscape is going to be totally flipped upside its head potentially after these playoffs are completed this year. So we're going to stop here. This is segment one where we've spoken about the playoffs so far, and it's been really entertaining. But we'll just go into this quick read here for the Actors Post, which I think you guys have been a bit familiar with right now. And we just wanted to say that, of course, entertainers gravitate towards entertainers, so why not check out a website that is made by entertainers for entertainers. Visit the Actors Post for interviews with professional performers like dancers, actors, film directors, even a Hall of Fame sports columnist, Peter Vesey, and an international supermodel, her name Sharam Denise. Visit the Actors Post at www.theactorspost.com or visit his social media pages at the Actors Post on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.